This is what happens when Mother Nature decides to mess up a soccer game. In Europe, it's common for it to snow during winter, but in some places, this makes a soccer match impossible to play. Just look at how this field is completely white. And yes, it really messes things up because the snow makes the ball slower, and things like this can happen. This striker must have been so mad. If there's one good thing about snow, it's that it cushions the players when they fall. But snow isn't the worst thing that can happen in a soccer game. Imagine running on the field and getting hit by a chunk of ice. That's what happened in this game when it started hailing right in the middle of the field. This was a friendly match between Belgium and Tunisia, and it had to be stopped at 23 minutes into the first half. The field was covered with hailstones. The funniest part is that while the players went to the locker rooms, the fans took the chance to have a party in the stands, and some even ran onto the field. After about 40 minutes of delay, the game resumed. In another match, something similar happened. Everyone had to run off the field because of the hailstones falling. Now check out what happened in this stadium. The wind was so strong you could barely see the field. I got cold just looking at it. Some brave fans stayed in the stadium and even made a snowman in the stands. Now what happens if a tornado shows up in the middle of a game? Take a look at these terrifying images. Even scarier is knowing that some players have lost their lives because of lightning strikes on the field. In this match, several players simply lay on the ground to protect themselves from the lightning.
Play in Johannesburg.
During the broadcast, you could even hear it. But for some reason, the referee didn't want to stop the game until a tragedy happened. One of the players was struck by lightning and needed urgent medical attention. But believe it or not, even simple things can be a problem. European fields are full of technology, but none of them can handle a really heavy rain. Look how soaked Manchester City's stadium got after a rain. The ball could barely roll. In another game in England, the players had to run off the field to escape the water. Even Messi has had a tough time. Check out the downpour during Barcelona's game. And the worst part is that while the ball doesn't roll well in the rain, the players slip a lot more. So the match turns into a disaster show. In this El Clasico, the Argentine couldn't stop shivering because of the rain and strong wind. After the game, he said playing in such conditions is simply inhumane. But when the field isn't great, things get even worse. This striker missed an easy goal because the ball stopped in the middle of a mud puddle. This also happened in another game, and the worst part is that the referee can't do anything since there's no rule for this situation. And when it's not the mud puddles causing problems, it's the water puddles turning the game into a mess. This match, for example, should have been cancelled. It's almost impossible to play in these conditions. In some places, the puddles were so big that the ball was literally floating. But nothing is as unusual as what happened in this game. In the middle of the match, everyone stopped when they heard a loud noise coming from an old power plant that was being demolished. The whole city, and even the players, stopped to watch. At least they were safe, but these guys here almost lost their lives because of a bizarre windstorm. The game was already messed up because many passes and shots were going in the wrong direction due to the wind, and then something worse happened. Yes, that's an advertising board flying across the field. Imagine if that hit a player. Everyone had to leave the stadium because if something flew into the crowd, an even bigger tragedy could happen. Speaking of strong winds, look what happened at this baseball game. One of the organizers was literally blown away by the wind. Luckily, he was okay. But in this match, Mother Nature decided to take center stage. Check out this amazing goal scored by the strong wind in the stadium. Yes, the ball only went over the goalkeeper because it picked up speed from the wind. Look at this super tackle. Even Sergio Ramos couldn't do better. The worst part is that many plays like this happened during the game. I feel bad for these players who must have ended up in the locker room covered in bruises and bumps. At least they joked about the disaster happening on the field. Look at the celebration when they somehow managed to score a goal. Now check out the crazy situation in this game. The goalkeeper picked up the ball to take a goal kick but couldn't keep it still. Yes, this happened because of the strong wind on the field. And the worst part is that this situation is so unusual, there's no rule for it in the FIFA book. Even the goalposts were moved by the wind, and the players had to put them back in place. The question is, why didn't the referee stop the game? But this wasn't the only goalkeeper struggling with the wind. This one just kicked the ball downfield, even with the wind causing problems. But take a look at what happened. The opposing players didn't even celebrate this goal, because honestly, it's unfair to play in these conditions. But in Brazilian soccer, something even crazier happened. To avoid cancelling a match, the league organizers hired a truck to drain the water from the field, but I think one truck wasn't enough. Look at the player trying to take a corner kick. But in this match, the opposite happened. Instead of the water coming from the sky, it came from the ground. How about this? Check out this water bubble that formed under the field. Speaking of tricky corners, in this game in England, it was impossible to take the kick. But for some reason, referees refused to stop games in these conditions, which didn't happen in this match. When the ref saw that the wind was causing too much trouble, he ordered everyone off the field to avoid accidents. In another match, the players couldn't even see the ball, and the game turned into a series of long kicks. Rain has even disrupted a Copa Libertadores final. The first game between Boca Juniors and River Plate had to be cancelled due to heavy rain at the venue. This is quite common in South America. In Brazil, this game had to be stopped because of a storm. Check out the field conditions in the second half. But in Brazil, something worse than anything we've seen happened. The country's biggest league is about to be halted because of a massive disaster. 5 clubs might be affected by a huge flood that hit Rio Grande do Sul. Look at the stadium of one of the top clubs in the region. Another stadium in the area recovering from the flood was left in this condition. And all this while the championship is ongoing. But the worst part is what the players had to go through. To save lives, they are wading into the floodwaters and helping however they can. Diego Costa, who played for Atletico Madrid and Chelsea, used his own car to rescue victims. This hero, with water up to his neck and carrying an elderly woman on his back, is a midfielder for International. The truth is, the season for these teams is basically over, but that's not the most important thing right now.